Hey there, and welcome to Authentically ADHD. I'm your host, Carmen, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a podcast where we get real about ADHD. No filters, no judgment, a safe space to explore and learn and grow. If you're here, it's because you want to take a deep dive into the world of ADHD, and trust me, we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Now, you're probably wondering, why did I start this podcast? Well, in true ADHD fashion, it all started very impulsively. One day, I thought, I should start a podcast, especially with all this paperwork that I have and all these notes that I have trying to understand my own ADHD. And the next thing I knew, here I am, sharing thoughts with you. I don't know, 200, 100 episodes later? I don't know. I lose track of time. I'm time blind. Are you? Anyways, when you have ADHD, ideas come fast, and sometimes you just gotta roll with them. Honestly, this podcast was born out of my passion for understanding ADHD in a deeper way with the newest research. You see, pills don't teach skills. That's something I've learned over the years. Medication can help, and it's a great tool to use, but true growth, that comes from knowledge, understanding, and actionable skills. And so that's what I want to share with you. Research-backed insights, practical tips, and lived experiences of someone who's been there. Now, a little bit about me. I'm not just a host of this podcast. I'm also an early childhood special education teacher, which means I've spent years understanding how children learn, grow, and thrive in ways that work for them, especially when they're neurodiverse. And I'm also a certified life and performance coach, guiding people to unlock their full potential in both their personal and professional lives. But here's the thing that makes me a little different. I'm also a late diagnosed ADHDer. And on top of that, I self-identify as being on the autism spectrum. So when I talk about ADHD, it's not just from a professional perspective, it's from lived experience, because I get it. I know what it's like to feel like your brain is running at full speed while everyone else is moving at a different pace, and you have instructions that are in Japanese and upside down, and everybody else got them in their own language. Throughout this podcast, I'll share all kinds of insights about navigating life with ADHD, from the everyday struggles to the strengths that we can celebrate. We'll talk about everything from time management to relationships to self-advocacy, and all about how to live authentically in a world that often asks us to be anything but. Whether you have ADHD yourself or you want to understand it better, you are in the right place. So, let's get started. Hi, this is a disclaimer that I am a early childhood special education teacher. I am a certified life and performance coach, and I am a podcaster. All right, I am not a medical doctor, and none of this information should be used in supplement of a medical professional and or therapy. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Authentically ADHD. I'm your host, Carmen, ADHD coach, special education teacher, and human lightning rod for big feelings. Today we're diving into something that doesn't get nearly enough attention: emotional intelligence and ADHD. Or what I like to call, why my feelings feel like a 4th of July finale inside of a hurricane. If you've ever cried at a cat commercial, spiraled from a slightly worded weird text, or felt like you were drowning in invisible feelings that you could not name, this episode is definitely for you. We're going to talk all about it, and of course, I'm definitely going to back it with neuroscience. And we're going to end and round out with some coping strategies and, relatable things. So, if you're ready, let's get started. What is emotional intelligence and why does it matter? We're going to kick things off again. We're going to make it brainy but basic. Emotional intelligence, or EI, is your brain's toolkit for navigating the emotional landscape of life.
Manage how we plan,
it's the
focus,
ability
remember
to
the instructions, regulate emotions,
what you're feeling,
and shift between
so it's
thoughts
like
and
self-awareness.
tasks. If
Regulate
executive
your
functions are the
response to
management
that
team of your
feeling,
brain,
that's like
cognitive
self-regulation,
flexibility,
and understand what somebody else might be feeling. That's social awareness or empathy. And then manage relationships in a way that is attuned and responsive, which falls under relationship management. Think of EI as the emotional operating system behind all human interaction. And spoiler, it's crucial for adulting. In healthy brain development, these skills are built over time through social learning, life experiences, and most importantly, through the growth of a region in the brain cell called the prefrontal cortex. Here's where the ADHD brain takes a detour. ADHD and the emotional brain, a neuroscience deep dive. In ADHD, the parts of the brain that support emotional intelligence don't operate in the usual like harmony. Some are underdeveloped, others are underactive, and many are simply working on their own neurodivergent timeline. Again, let me remind you, ADHD is a spectrum. If you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. We all struggle with emotions, but all in varying levels and in varying areas. So this doesn't mean that emotional intelligence is out of reach. It means that emotional processing system is using a different GPS. Let's look at the key players. 1. Prefrontal cortex, the emotional air traffic control tower. This is the brain's CEO, like we've talked about, the command center for all things executive function, inhibition, planning, prioritization, attention shifting, and emotional regulation. In ADHD, the prefrontal cortex is often hypoactive, meaning it shows reduced blood flow and electrical activity compared to brains that don't have ADHD. It also tends to mature more slowly, especially during adolescence and early adulthood, often lagging 2 to 3 years behind in development. So what does this mean for emotional intelligence? You may feel an intense emotion and react before your brain can process it. That critical pause and reflect moment is way harder to access. And it's like having a brake pedal, but the cable to your foot is a bit loose or delayed. This affects both self-awareness, noticing the emotion, and self-regulation, managing how you respond to the emotion. Then there is the amygdala, the emotional alarm system. The amygdala is part of the limbic system, which governs that survival-based emotional response like fear, anger, and excitement. Think of it as your emotional smoke alarm when something feels off, social rejection, perceived criticism, sensory overload. It sounds the alarm. But here's the twist. In ADHD brains, the amygdala tends to be hyper-reactive, meaning it activates more quickly. It sends stronger signals, and it's less inhibited by the prefrontal cortex. So, what might feel like a small emotional bump to a brain that doesn't have ADHD can feel like a full-on emergency to an ADHD brain. This is a big reason why we experience emotional overwhelm, shutdown, or meltdowns. It's often happening faster than we can even explain. It also makes emotional filtering harder. Instead of calmly evaluating, I'm frustrated because X happened, we go straight into, I'm not okay and I don't know why. Then there's the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, the conflict mediator, aka. The ACC is kind of like the brain's referee. It helps you detect conflicts between the emotional impulses and logical reasoning, make decisions based both on emotion and logic, and shift attention between competing thoughts or feelings. In people with ADHD, studies show that reduced functional connectivity between the ACC and the prefrontal cortex. Translation: these two regions aren't talking well with each other. They don't communicate. And when they do, it's lazily and it's in shorthand and it's hard to understand. So when you're flooded with emotion, your brain might struggle to weigh the emotion signal against context, decide whether the reaction that you have is appropriate, or move on from it and re-engage in the moment. This is especially tied to that ADHD hallmark, difficulty letting go of emotional states. We get stuck in them. Then there's those dopamine pathways, the emotional volume dial. let's talk dopamine. That feel good, motivation boosting, attention directing neurotransmitter. In ADHD, there's often a dopaminergic deficit, meaning less dopamine is produced, it's not recycled efficiently, or the brain's receptors are less sensitive to it. This doesn't just impact focus and motivation, it also affects emotional salience, which is how the brain decides what's important enough to care about and what's not. So sorry if you can hear all of the dogs barking. It's spring and the doors are open. So anyways, without a balanced dopamine system, some emotions feel explosively intense, so the dopamine spikes. Others feel flat, muted, or distant. Dopamine dips. And the timing of emotional responses can be off. You might cry over something minor hours later or have a delayed sense of impact. This roller coaster can be confusing for both the ADHDer and the people around them, but it's not irrational. It's neurochemical. Let's put it all together. So when we say the ADHD brain struggles with emotional intelligence, we're not saying it's broken. What we're saying is the prefrontal cortex can't always regulate in time. The amygdala sets off alarms before the actual facts come in. And the ACC has a lag in conflict resolution. And the dopamine system keeps tweaking the volume of the emotional experience. This is not about being too sensitive or being bad at emotions. It's about a brain that feels deeply and processes non-linearly. And knowing why is the first step towards building tools that actually work for you and your brain and not fight against it. So when somebody says just calm down or just be more self-aware, we kind of have to laugh it off because for the ADHD brain, the system that is supposed to do its job, or that job, is often running on a delay, skipping crucial steps, or processing emotions with the volume turned all the way up and no mute button in sight. It's not because we're dramatic, or immature, or emotionally stunted. It's because our brains are processing all the emotional stimuli and emotion regulation differently. In fact, according to Dr. Thomas E. Brown, a leading ADHD researcher, one of the 6 key executive function impaired in the ADHD is managing emotions, even though it's often left out of the diagnostic criteria because it's not in the DSM-5. So why does this all matter? Well, because emotional intelligence affects everything in our lives. How we communicate in relationships, how we navigate work stress, how we bounce back from rejection or failure, how we parent, collaborate, love, lead. If our emotional processing system is on high alert mode or constantly buffering, it's no wonder we feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted. But here's the hope. Emotional intelligence isn't fixed. Thanks to neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to change and grow, we can build those EI muscles with intention. With the right supports and ADHD brain, it can learn to slow down, name feelings, and regulate reactions in ways that are safe and empowering. Before we go on in this topic, let's hear a word from our sponsors. Hey there. If you're looking for a game changer in managing your ADHD, let me tell you about something that's made a huge impact on my life. Focused, the adult ADHD group coaching program by Kristen Carter. This isn't just another program. It's a community. It's a roadmap. It's a lifeline for adults with ADHD who want to thrive. Inside of Focus, you'll find weekly coaching calls with Kristen packed with actionable insights, a supportive community of adults who get it. They get what it's like to live with ADHD. You'll get tools and strategies that actually work for our brains. No fluff, just real results. I've been a part of Focused for over a year, and let me tell you, it's where I've learned so much of what I share with you on Authentically ADHD. It's been a game changer for me, and I think it could be for you too. And here's the best part. If you use my link to join, we both save money. It's a win-win. So if you've been looking for the right ADHD support, this is your sign to check it out. Head to the link in my show notes to learn more and sign up. Let's thrive together with tools and support that we need to succeed. Are you also loving what we're doing on Authentically ADHD but want to take your experience to the next level? Well, I have got something for you. Introducing the Authentically ADHD Patreon, your VIP pass to the ultimate ADHD support hub. As a Patreon member, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to every single episode, hear it before anyone else does, a treasure trove of resources that I've made, tools, guides, and worksheets to help you thrive in everyday aspects of life, direct coaching opportunities with me designed to help you harness your ADHD powers, and the cherry on top, an incredible community of like-minded individuals who just get it. You're not alone on this journey, and together we can be unstoppable. By joining Patreon, you're not just supporting the podcast, you're fueling a movement. Together, we're breaking stigmas, embracing authenticity, and creating a world where ADHD is seen as a strength and not just a struggle. So what are you waiting for? Head over to patreon.com/authenticallyADHD and join the family today. Let's keep growing, thriving, and showing up authentically together. Hope to see you over there. Back to the show. All right, let's take a little bit of a closer look and zoom in on the brain in according to neuroscience of the emotional dysregulation in ADHD. In brains without ADHD, the prefrontal cortex works in harmony with the amygdala when something triggers them emotionally. The prefrontal cortex helps evaluate and regulate the response. But in ADHD, the prefrontal cortex tends to have delayed maturation or reduced activity, especially in regions tied to emotional regulation. The amygdala and limbic system are more easily triggered and less filtered, and the dopamine pathways, which play a huge role in reward, mood, and motivation, are dysregulated, meaning our emotional responses are often either underwhelming or way overwhelming. Result? Feelings hit hard and fast, without the buffer or delay that helps others cool down. It's not a character flaw, it's biology. According to Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the leading experts in ADHD, emotional self-regulation is a core part of the ADHD experience, even though it's not officially listed in the DSM criteria. So what does this feel like? For ADHDers, emotional dysregulation can look like overreacting to minor setbacks, cue microwave won't close properly, existential crisis, and we might actually break the freaking microwave, getting stuck in a shame loop for something small, like breaking the microwave, feeling like your emotions are too much for the people around you, like the person who just watched you break the microwave, and struggling to name what you're even feeling, like why the F did I just break that microwave, or going numb when things get too emotionally overwhelming. Now I have to buy a new microwave, I don't have the money for that, oh my god, shut down. We might feel all the feelings at once, feelings that are out of proportion, or emotions that shift so fast they leave us dizzy. Sometimes we cry and we don't know why. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, whatever. Or we snap at somebody and instantly regret it, but we can't seem to explain what just happened inside of us. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's a lack of an emotional filter, a delayed brake pedal from our brain. Here's where we shift gears from, ugh, my brain is broken, to wait, my brain is a work in progress. And that's actually amazing, because guess what? Neuroscience tells us that our brains are not a fixed thing. They are muscles. So thanks to neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to recognize itself by forming new neural connections, we can train, rewire, and strengthen the parts of our brain involved in emotional intelligence. Even if ADHD has made that journey turbulent, we are absolutely not stuck. And we are absolutely not talking about fake it till you make it coping here. We're talking about real, observable changes, building these things that can actually build changes in brain structure and function. So let's dive into how do we do that. Segment 4, coping strategies. Mindfulness and interoception, reconnecting with the body's signals. Mindfulness is not just meditation on a mountaintop. It's a brain training tool, especially for ADHDers. When we pause to notice what's going on in our brains, like a racing heart, clenched jaw, or fluttering stomach, we activate insula, a brain region that supports interoception, or awareness of our internal body states. Interoception is directly linked to emotional awareness, and research shows that mindfulness strengthens the prefrontal cortex and quiets the amygdala and improves emotional regulation by increasing communication between those regions. Even a 30-second body scan or a pause and breathe moment can begin to rewire the brain's ability to name what you're feeling, recognize it as a state and not as an identity, and choose our next step from a place of clarity and not chaos. Something I do a lot is sitting down to journal out my emotions. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm feeling or why. Number 2, emotional labeling. Name it to tame it, you guys. Dr. Dan Siegel said it best. Here's the science behind that snappy phrase. Labeling emotions recruits the left hemisphere of the brain, specifically a part of the prefrontal cortex I cannot pronounce, to engage logical, language-based processing. So, this reduces activation in the amygdala, which otherwise is firing off emotional SOS signals. In simpler terms, when we put feelings into words, our brains calm down. But in ADHD, we often struggle with alexithymia, a condition linked to difficulty identifying and describing emotions. This isn't because we don't feel deeply, it's because our language centers aren't always synced up with our emotional processing. Using feeling wheels, journaling prompts, or even voice notes can help you bridge this gap. AI is your friend. Typing in journal prompts for enter descriptions about you or specific journal prompts here works really, really well. And over time, this builds internal emotional GPS. So you're not just overwhelmed, you know why you are and where you are. 3, coaching and therapy, building emotional regulation muscles. A skilled ADHD coach or therapist isn't there to fix you, but they are there to guide you and help you translate your brain's signals and learn tools to fit your wiring. Therapeutic techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, are especially helpful for ADHDers, but so is coaching. Why? Because they all target emotional reactivity, cognitive reframing, distress tolerance, and impulse control. Furthermore, coaching can target goal setting and achievement and other behavioral modifications that you want to focus on. CBT strengthens the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, helping with planning and problem solving. And DBT builds emotional regulation and mindfulness circuits, teaching you how to ride the wave of a feeling without letting it crash your whole nervous system. Therapists and coaches can also help you reframe those toxic internal narratives that ADHDers often carry. I'm too sensitive. I always overreact. Why can't I just get it together? Because these aren't truths. They're stories or thoughts that we've internalized to survive, and they need to be rewritten. Reframing emotional sensitivity as data, not drama. Here's a radical reframe. Your emotions are not problems to be solved. They're messages to be heard and things to be learned from and things to be felt. They're part of life's experiences. Many ADHDers grow up being told we're too much, too intense, too reactive, and too dramatic. So we start ignoring our emotional data until it explodes. But science tells us that emotions are information. They activate our limbic system to get our attention. So if we learn to listen to those signals early when they're whispers and not sirens, we can respond with curiosity instead of crisis and chaos. So next time you feel a strong emotion, try asking, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Where do I feel it in my body? What need might be unmet right now? This tiny moment of curiosity activates the prefrontal cortex and shifts your nervous system into a more regulated state and builds a pattern of responding instead of reacting. Over time, this rewires the emotional centers of the brain to trust your emotional cues instead of fearing them. Bottom line, emotional intelligence is not a fixed trait. It's a skill set, and ADHD doesn't disqualify you from it. It means that the path just might be a little windier and less paved. But with mindfulness, language support, and compassion, we can go from emotional wildfire to wise, responsive inner firekeeper. Because ADHD is not just a lack of emotion, it's often an overflow of it, just waiting to be understood, not suppressed. Emotional intensity isn't a flaw, it's a signal. We're going to end this all out with a truth bomb. Emotional intensity is not a weakness. It's your brain's way of saying, hey, something matters here. And when we stop pathologizing our emotions and start listening to them, this is where things shift. Yes, ADHD can make emotional regulation feel like juggling fireworks in a windstorm. But when you learn to work with your brain using tools, self-compassion, and support, we can turn that chaos into clarity. Your emotional depth isn't too much. It's actually your power. That is it today, my fiercely feeling, deeply thoughtful ADHD warriors. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's ever felt too much for the world. You're not alone and you're not broken. Your brain just speaks a different emotional language, and we're learning and unlearning to translate it all together. Until next time, stay authentic, and we will talk soon.